Ready.
I extend my very warm greetings to all my friends and acquaintances of Ilanke Tamil Sangam, United States of America, and bring you greetings from the Tamil people of Durban, South Africa. I'm very pleased to participate in this virtual memorial event for the victims of the final war in Sri Lanka on May 18th, 2009, 11 years ago. Remembrance is important because it reinforces our commitment to honor the almost 146,000 Tamils who perished in the 6 decade struggle for self determination of Tamils in Sri Lanka. And remembrance inspires us to continue to take collective action for justice and redress for them. What I saw and heard of the suffering of Tamils in Sri Lanka on my mission there as United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in 2013 still haunts me deeply. The anguish of survivors was especially traumatic along the lagoon to Mullivaikkal. I saw fresh, shallow, unmarked graves with items of limbs and clothing still visible, just abandoned there in the sand. And that is the point where it was civilian Tamils who had been shelled from the air and abandoned. I met hundreds of victims weeping for their loved ones who had been killed or who had disappeared or were displaced. Thousands of video footage and documents evidenced atrocities committed against Tamils and Tamil women. I saw videos of piles of dead bodies of women, naked or semi naked. Enormous violation of the dignity of the Tamil women. Tens of thousands of civilians were annihilated for no other reason than that they were Tamils. Such killings constitute international crimes. Lasting peace and reconciliation will not happen unless respect and remembrance for the victims are accorded on a regular basis. Sadly, the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka continues to suffer discrimination and exclusion. Last year, the government of Sri Lanka refused to allow the singing of the national anthem in Tamil. In the past, on Independence Day celebrations, the national anthem was always sung in both languages. But last year, they denied the Tamil language. Just one more act of denying the Tamils their identity. One more act of continuing discrimination and harassment of Tamils. I understand that there are 200 people in detention under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, an act that the Human Rights Council appealed to the Sri Lankan government to repeal. Uh, Tamil lands that were stolen and occupied by the military, although restored in minuscule proportions, those lands of the Tamils that were stolen have still not been returned to them. Instances of persisting violations of human rights of Tamils are being regularly reported by civil society organizations, by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the United Nations independent experts, four of them who visit Sri Lanka regularly. Last year, in her report to the Human Rights Council, that's this year on March 20th, 2020, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, expressed concern with the signs of reversal of past commitments made by the Sri Lankan government towards setting up mechanisms for justice and accountability. She warned that the failure by the government to fully implement all the Human Rights Council resolutions for peace, reconciliation, accountability, and human rights risks repeating the cycle of human rights violations. Now, this is very ominous, the risk that the Tamils in Sri Lanka continue to face. The denial of personal freedoms and human rights to Tamils are linked to persistent impunity and violation of the rule of law. If perpetrators of serious acts of violence are not punished, they begin to think that they are all too powerful, that they are above the rule of law. And this is why we call continually for an end to impunity. United Nations investigations determined that international crimes amounting to war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed against Tamils in Sri Lanka during the war. But there has been no investigation, no credible judicial mechanism. Instead, the government has acted, I would say, against justice. In March this year, the president pardoned and released from prison Army Sergeant Sunil Ratnayaka, who had been sentenced in 2015 for the murder he committed in 2000 of 8 civilians, including a 5-year-old child, a conviction and sentence that had been confirmed by the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka in May 2019. So a release of a key perpetrator who had been sentenced to imprisonment by the court is a cynical act of huge insult to the Tamils. Pardoning one of the sole convicted perpetrators of crimes committed during the war is an insult to victims, and it undermines the progress, however limited, that is being made towards ending impunity for serious crimes. This is why all of us and the international community need to remain engaged and vigilant to ensure justice and reparation for the Tamils of Sri Lanka. Thank you.